Today on the Big 3 and 30 College, the Iowa Hawkeyes give their basketball coach an extension.
A new contract has been reached with Iowa and Ben McCollum.
It looks like the Jazz want to keep BYU's AJ Dybantsa in Utah.
AJ Dybantsa might just be a member of the Utah Jazz, which is making BYU fans freak out.
And Kansas wins a quarterback recruiting battle over Auburn.
Chance Thomas committing to KU, adding another quarterback commit to the fold for Kansas.
This is the Big 3 and 30 College, the three biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 and 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 and 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Iowa Hawkeyes rewarded Ben McCollum with an extension after his historic first season in Iowa City ended in the Final Four. Trent Condon with Locked On Hawkeyes lays out what it means with Spencer McLaughlin.
A new contract has been reached with Iowa and Ben McCollum. Now, this negates what was signed just a year ago. This is a brand new contract that will run through 2032. Just an extra year that was tacked on to the backside of this, but there is a raise that goes along with it and over $1 million per year that is going to go up for Ben McCollum. Now, obviously, what he did throughout the course of the season, including in the NCAA tournament, triggered a lot of bonuses for him this season, and those bonuses still are going to be there and the opportunity to build on what this base is. But the base goes up basically $1 million a year, plus that extra year that is on the contract. Next year, he'll be making $4.35 million, up to $4.45 the following year, $4.55, $4.65, $4.75, $4.85, basically going up just a little, $100,000, just a little bit. Easy for me to say, right? Yeah, I would definitely like to trade contracts with Coach McCollum at this point in time. But that final year of the contract, $4.8 million is where it is. Now, here was some of the sticking points, or at least what we wondered after the agreement was talked about last week, is what the buyout number is going to be. As we know, North Carolina was very interested in Ben McCollum. They wanted to conduct an in-person interview, according to Matt Norlander from CBS Sports, and Ben McCollum said no. He was good. Didn't even go through the interview process, and A, shows you how well-regarded Ben McCollum is, and secondly, what he wants to do and what he's striving to do in the home state school. A guy like me, like most of you that grew up a Hawkeye fan, the importance, and we talk about us guys in our mid-40s, what Iowa basketball is, the importance. It's something that I talk about here often, and you can feel that same kind of thing from Ben McCollum and getting Iowa basketball back to the winner that it once was and becoming now a consistent winner. You know, as you hear Ben McCollum speak, the process that goes into it, it's something that is very difficult to kind of put your thumb on exactly what it is. It's, if you know it, you see it kind of thing. But with Ben McCollum, it's not just the coach speak. He really believes in the way that they're building the foundation of this program. And year number one was great because of what happened in the NCAA tournament. And even without it, it was an exciting year. A lot of good moments. There were some frustrating ones in there as well. Inconsistent, certainly, but you look forward and you look at what this program still can be, and you need the investment that goes along with it. And listening to Beth Getz and talking to her last week, you definitely get that perspective that the investment is going to be there for Iowa men's basketball. Not that it was left behind, but there were other things that took over. And of course, the football program is what drives everything economically and certainly attendance-wise for the athletic department, ticket sales, the TV revenue that comes in for Iowa football. You can never let that languish. Coupled with, obviously, what happened with Caitlin Clark. You had a generational player make her way through Iowa City. And with that, as we turned into the NIL era, there were certain things that needed to be dedicated to the women's basketball program. Wrestling, obviously what happens there, and some of the other sports. And men's basketball was, I don't want to say left behind because that's not fair, but it was not at the forefront of things. That definitely, I think, is a perspective that we all can see. Well, now it's back on the front porch, as it should be. The importance of Iowa basketball, what it means for so many people, and to have it back, to have the coach that you have now is a huge, huge component. Well, the buyout figure was something I found interesting. And look, Ben McCollum has another great season coming up this year, and Kentucky comes calling. whoever comes calling and blows Iowa out of the water in terms of money, and that's what it is, and he wants to take one of those blue blood jobs, those opportunities very well could be there again for Ben McCollum. The buyout number is not going to matter. The buyout's going to be $5 million after this season, $4 million the year after that. It dwindles by year 5 down to $1 million, and if it gets all the way to the end of the contract, there is no buyout that is there. But also remember, if we continue to see Iowa basketball have many of the same successes that we saw this season, there's going to be new contracts that come. There's going to be more money that is invested. And speaking of Beth Getz, that's something that she's also talked about. She said that the philanthropic investment from some of the big money donors out there, to paraphrase, definitely went up for what we saw during the NCAA tournament, as you'd anticipate and what you hope for. And they definitely got that. So it's an exciting time. Look, the details, at least we have a few of them and a few things that you can look at year after year. Another big component I was wondering about was the assistant coaching pool. That also increased. Tyler Tashman, looking through the contract, had the minimum annual salary for the assistant coaches and support staff increases another $100,000, $107,500 to be exact, for the contract that was signed a year ago. So more money that's going to go to those assistant coaches. And those are going to be guys also that are going to be in demand. Look, he brought so many guys that he has connections to, and brought so many of the guys with him from Drake, not just on the hardwood, but the coaching staff. And that's something that Ben McCollum in the beginning was very upfront about. It's not just going out there and getting guys that have been through the Big Ten, have been through the Power Four, those kind of things. That really doesn't matter to Ben McCollum. It's about working with guys, working with people who understand what he's looking for. And he definitely has that connection. Went out and got Luke Barnwell from Texas Tech. Previous connection that those two guys had. That was a big, big get that they got a year ago. The excitement, it is through the roof. There's no doubt about it. What Iowa basketball is doing at this point in time is absolutely huge of what they were able to do in year number 1 of this program and the successes going forward. Some other things, the bonuses. Well, that's always interesting too. You get a conference championship, $75,000. Now, I would argue, as somebody that is graying, you can't see it, I got my hat on today if you're watching this on YouTube, but thank you for that. Hit subscribe while you're here. I'm an old man, and I've never seen a regular season title. The last one happened in 1980. I was born in 1980, April of 1980. No, 79. 80 was the Final Four. Goodness. That should be even more. I mean, double that thing, triple that thing. If they get a regular season title, look out. All right. Other bonuses for Ben McCollum in the new contract that he just signed. Conference tournament championship, $50,000. All right. We've seen those. That's great. Would love to see another one of them. NCAA tournament invite, that gets you $50,000. You make it to the round of 32. There's another $75,000. $100K if you get to the Sweet 16. Elite 8, $150,000. A Final Four, $200,000 as they bump that thing up even more, and winning a national championship, $400,000. On top of that, academic bonuses that are available, Big Ten Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year, a lot of bonuses in there, and let's hope that Ben McCollum hits each and every one of those, because I think all of us would be supporting both, not just going to games and wearing the t-shirts and getting excited. I think we could all, if you're able to, certainly chip in a little bit to make all that reality. Ben McCollum's got the new contract, and with it, a lot of excitement continues for this Iowa basketball team. The raises there, well-deserved for Ben McCollum.
If you've ever opened a bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. How does Rocket Money help you keep track of your finances? It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed. That's according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves. It's over at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support your show by saying you heard about Indeed right here. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. The Utah Jazz have the second pick in the NBA draft, and the local debate is whether they should chase former BYU star AJ Dybantsa. Jake Hatch with Locked On Cougars gets into it with Drake C. Toll.
This is our first crossover in months, by the way, and it's very valid because AJ Dybantsa might just be a member of the Utah Jazz, which is making BYU fans freak out, and now Utah fans don't really know how to feel about it. That is exactly where we'll start today. And then BYU and the Big 12 by and large, these schools are denying this private equity, capital equity deal. And a week ago it was, hey, a free $30 million. Iowa State should be excited. UCF should be excited. Baylor should be. And now everyone's saying no. Why? And why specifically is BYU saying no? And then we'll end it with Utah and BYU both. For as much as they claim, hey, big athletic department, a lot of money, revenue, hey, we're powers in the Big 12. Why have baseball and softball fallen so far behind? It's a valid question. If you hit subscribe, we both get to keep our jobs. Oh, and if you listen every day, our everydayers can go to lockedonbig12.supercast.com or lockedoncougars.supercast.com for everyday ad-free Locked On shows. Jake, the little ping pong balls are rattling. Pull them out. The Utah Jazz, the number 2 overall pick. And now all of a sudden, BYU fans went from, in the span of a week, wow, we have the number 1 pick, AJ Dybantsa, in our house, to hopefully we have the number 2 pick, AJ Dybantsa, in our house. And I said this on Westwood One Sports this week. I think that if you put Darren Peterson in a gym alone and just, hey, here's a basketball, go, he's widely considered the best talent in this class, that they consider to be the best athlete in a combine setting. He's going to blow everybody else out of the water. That's why he was number 1 for so long. Then the storylines took over. The mentals took over. The creatine overdose took over. And that's where NBA franchises, organizations are getting leery of this. Is AJ Dybantsa a member of the Utah Jazz if Darren Peterson can have that good of a next couple months?
Well, I'll just tell you this much. BYU fans become Darren Peterson fans very, very quickly. And they're espousing all the great things about Darren Peterson because, yes, they want him to end up in Washington. Speaking of DP, they want Darren Peterson to be a Washington Wizard, therefore allowing the Utah Jazz to select the hometown guy in AJ Dybantsa. That is the fever dream of all Cougar fans right now. And I also think, for my part of it, Drake, I think the Utah Jazz, they would like to have that fall their way as well. Now, we'll see what happens. The Utah Jazz, I think, have the assets. If they feel like AJ is the guy, I think they can make a deal sweet enough to make Washington say, hey, you're dropping down just 1 slot. Let us move up. But yes, BYU fans, they want AJ moving 40 miles north to the Delta Center.
Okay, so the Ryan Smith piece of this. He's a businessman. He's a smart guy. He's not going to crash the Utah Jazz as an organization just to get AJ Dybantsa and appease the masses here. But is it at some point worth it to really look at, hey, what in the chamber can we unload to get a name like this that's going to double the pomp and circumstance around? Because think about this, Jake. We're having a conversation now where BYU fans are huge Darren Peterson supporters, but I don't know if they'd be very happy if Darren Peterson was a member of the Utah Jazz.
I think they would come around on Darren Peterson based on his play on the court. But to your point, initially, the reaction would be very poor. I'm with you on that. And that's the thing about this is the Utah Jazz, Drake. Obviously, I work for the KSL Sports Zone. We're the flagship station of the Utah Jazz here in Salt Lake City, my day job. The Utah Jazz have 9 first-round picks in the next 4 drafts, Drake. They have got pick swaps going into the early part of next decade. And by the way, they've got a number of talented young players on this roster, including one guy that the Washington Wizards desperately wanted a season ago in Ace Bailey. I'm telling you, if the Washington Wizards are inclined, some of the early reporting says that they are willing to listen to offers. If they are so inclined to make a deal, I'm telling you, if there is a franchise that's got the assets, the war chest, as it were, to make something happen, not obviously mortgage the future, it's the Utah Jazz to go get their guy if they want to get AJ number 1.
I know, and look, Utah Jazz fans are not made up of just BYU fans. It's one of the cool pieces about the rivalry between BYU and Utah is you can go to a game in Rice-Eccles and both sides are wearing Utah Jazz gear. Like, all right, well, we all kind of have to come together on that front. And Utah Mammoth gear. It's that weird pro sports aspect of Salt Lake City and the state of Utah. With that being said, is there a clear, I mean, the way that I view this, okay? If AJ Dybantsa is a member of the Jazz versus a Darren Peterson or a Cameron Boozer even, season ticket sales to jersey sales to the attack, you have, in essence, as BYU is the flagship university of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you have a faith that has backed this guy for a year and would support him to the end, to kingdom come, that's pun intended. And so that alone, the revenue alone in that, makes me want to sell out as much as I can to get that name and get that guy. Because, Jake, just from the outsider perspective, it seems like it'd be handled so differently by the Jazz fan base, those two names, Dybantsa versus Peterson.
Yeah, you're right. And you're dead on with that. He has a built-in following already of thousands, if not millions, already in this state, Drake. Whether they're Utah fans or BYU fans, they all know AJ Dybantsa, and they have seen his game up close and personal. This is a guy that fits, I think, ideally in what the Utah Jazz deal with, and that is being a smaller market in the NBA that obviously the NBA caters more towards its large markets. This is a guy who played high school ball here. He played his college ball here. And, oh, by the way, if he plays his professional basketball, jersey sales, revenue, everything is going to go up infinitely. And that's why I think the Utah Jazz, at least I'm not reporting this, but my feeling is the Utah Jazz desperately want a guy like AJ Dybantsa playing for the Utah Jazz, because not only would he be a revenue goldmine, he also makes that roster pretty darn talented.
Yeah. Jake, what are the odds? What are the true odds, given Ryan Smith and what's in the chamber, that Dybantsa ends up? Because look, let's consider now. I said it 3 weeks ago that AJ Dybantsa is the number 1 overall pick. I can't back off that now. I can't start saying, well, wait a second, what if?
He says he wants to be the number 1 pick too. So let's be clear about that.
Right, and he deserves to be. He absolutely deserves to be. What are the odds that AJ Dybantsa is a member of the Utah Jazz next year?
I will say right now, 55-45 against him being part of the Utah Jazz. I just think that if the reporting is true that the Washington Wizards are listening to offers, the Utah Jazz don't have to sell them on much. You're not dropping, like, let's say the Utah Jazz had gotten where they were slotted originally, the 4th pick, or they won that coin flip, Drake, with the Sacramento Kings, that the Kings dropped to 7th. If you were trying to jump from 5, 6, or 7 in this draft to 1, the Washington Wizards are saying, thanks, but no thanks, click. They're hanging up immediately. The fact that they only have to drop 1 spot and they could pick up a haul of picks, players, whatever it takes, man, I can't rule it out. And I do think that they'd probably be inclined, speaking of the Wizards, to take AJ, but I still think there is a fighting chance that the Utah Jazz could pull this off and make him the top overall pick.
Yeah, I could. I mean, so BYU fans are salivating over. The first tweet I saw on Sunday was a BYU sports lover tweet it was just 300 words of, at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves. Darren Peterson is a generational talent. It's just
Drake. So a guy named Post Jim, or Steve Pierce, he's been a longtime BYU basketball guy for years and years and years. He's a great basketball mind. He said BYU fans are going to have to choke on a lot of words that they said about Darren Peterson over the past year as they try and espouse all the great things about this young man to force him to get into the Washington Wizards to get you the guy that you want. Trust me, there has been a major tone shift in the AJ Dybantsa versus Darren Peterson debate out here in Utah. There is zero doubt about that.
So funny, man. And I I look, if there's one bit of reprieve here for fans of BYU and AJ Dybantsa and fans of him being a member of the Utah Jazz, it's that if any organization just sucks, it's the Washington. If anybody's gonna flub this somehow, it's the Washington Wizards, who go out and get Darius Acuff Jr. number 1 overall and shock the world. And then he's out of the league in 3. He's Markelle Fultz in 3 years. That's still a possibility. It's on the table.
Your outdoor space should feel like you. It's one of those spots you keep meaning to fix up but never quite get around to. That's where Wayfair comes in. They make it easy to find pieces that match the vibe you want. I love how easy it is to filter by style and budget so you can find exactly what fits your space. They have everything in one place: seating, decor, lighting, even outdoor rugs. Getting prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Kansas landed 2027 quarterback Chance Thomas, beating out Utah and Auburn for his commitment. Derek Johnson with Locked On Jayhawks breaks down the addition.
Breaking down Chance Thomas committing to KU, adding another quarterback commit to the fold for Kansas. We get into what it means for the future of the QB room, the scouting report on Thomas, and more. And this is a player who had a lot of great offers. In the end, he chooses Kansas over Utah and Auburn, which, you're talking SEC school, you're talking Big 12 school that has consistently been one of the better, top 25 teams in the program over recent years, including this past season. It's a big deal for Kansas to get a kid like this, right? He's an 88 rated 3-star recruit out of Southern California. He was a top 750, or at least is right now, nationally ranked recruit if you look at the 24/7 sports composite. And you look at it, he's a top 30 quarterback in the class, which, again, that is a very good place to be in if you are Kansas. And so where this now puts KU is in a position where they have their first quarterback commit, and probably only in the class. It also gives KU their 4th commit in total in the class. And when you look at it with Derek Gonzalez, offensive tackle, Trey Stewart, running back, and Dang Tong, receiver, this is one of, if not your best recruit that you've brought in so far. If you look at the 24/7 sports ratings, it would say that Thomas is KU's highest rated commit right now. If you look at the 24/7 composite, it would end up being Dang Tong. But point being, this is one of your biggest additions of the class, not just because of the position he plays, which is an important key to this as well, but because of just how good he is as well. And I found this interesting too. This was according to Dustin Lewis of Sports Illustrated, but 42 of the top 55 quarterbacks in the class of 2027 have already announced their decision. So the amount of top end guys, and I don't know why the cutoff to 55 specifically, but that means there's not a lot left to work with that are uncommitted at this point. And so you were running out of, guys to be that, because it just seems like Kansas kind of brings in 1 QB per class at this point. You're kind of running out of the guys to do that. And you, not only as you were running out of options to be able to go to, but you still ended up with a good one. This wasn't just, you took whatever was left. You ended up with a really good one when those options were kind of expiring. And just in general, I think it's been a nice run of commits for Kansas and Lance Leipold here as they're starting to kind of really piece things together for this class of 2027, which has been slower to get commits than some of the recent classes, but now is shaping up, even with the 4 commits so far, to look pretty good for KU. Chance Thomas is a 6'1", 195-pound quarterback from Western High School in Anaheim, and incredible stats in 2025. You're talking 71.5% completion rate, 3,327 passing yards with 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He also carried the ball 94 times for 734 yards. so almost 8 yards per carry with 7 touchdowns there. So those are unbelievable stats all the way through, passing and rushing the ball. Really, really good numbers, like all the way through of what you're talking about here, right? Now, Andrew Irvins, who is the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports, you can check out the full profile on his 24/7 Sports page, but I'm going to highlight a few of the ones that I found interesting here in terms of some of the notes. The dynamic deep shot artist, and I'll get into a little bit of that from what I saw from, watching some of the highlights here. That is very apparent. This is a dude who wants to go deep and push the ball down the field. And that is, I think sometimes you end up with the quarterbacks who get overly concerned with trying to do the right thing and checking down every time. And you're not really pushing the ball or stretching or stressing the defense out. And I think that's kind of the opposite with Thomas. He does stress the defense out with the way he pushes the ball downfield, right? Andrew also mentions constantly extending plays with the pocket movement and is a threat to pick up big chunks of yardage anytime he decides to scramble. He's in his element when he has to improvise. That sounds a lot like recent KU quarterbacks, and then projects as a potential multi-year starter in a wide open attack that wants to let him create. And that is the beauty of like the KU offense, that, as much as there is structure to it with the motions and the different formations and the intricacies of what they're trying to do, there is an element of trying to create and the art form of it when you saw some of the highlight plays that Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels made over the years for KU. Now, from what I saw over the highlights here for Chance Thomas, like I said earlier, loves to push the ball downfield, which I think is a great thing. Like Jason Bean loved to push the ball downfield and was able to, take advantage of that in a real way. You get him some downfield threats, and, if you start looking ahead to what the Kansas receiver room is looking like, kind of building forward, like you look at some of the guys they brought in the class of 2026, whether it was Tyron Parker, whether it's Nate Sims, you look at, Dang Tong in the class of 2027, Kansas is bringing in a lot of speed into that receiver room over some of the recent recruiting classes, which means if you get a quarterback who can launch it downfield with some guys who can burn downfield, it feels like that is a little bit intentional for KU to try to create some big plays going that way. And I think this one's tough for me to like have a full takeaway from, because it is just highlights and you're only seeing the best plays and it is more of a limited sample of a game. But I think sometimes when you're watching quarterback highlights, you can get enamored with the just what you see on film. But how often are you, when you're watching the highlight of the quarterback, are you seeing the quarterback move off his first read, go to a second read, or even a third read and throw it to that guy, right? Because on the highlights, you're just seeing the good stuff. He might just look at the first read, make the throw, and it's like, oh, that looked really cool on the highlight. There were plays on the highlights where he's like looking to one side of the field, nothing's there. He progresses and goes to the other side of the field and throws it to that guy. And I just found that really impressive. The processing stuff, which again, that is kind of a small sample size of highlights, but based on what I did see, it did seem like he has that ability, which is obviously a great thing. Also seemed like somebody who can fit some throws into tight windows when he needs to. He obviously has good speed and quickness. I would describe him as kind of a slippery runner and tough to, get down in the pocket. I think those scrambling skills came really in handy for him, because I guess in watching some of the highlights, again, I'm not watching the full games of this guy. I don't have film available for Western High School. The offensive line looked like they at times would struggle, I guess, to say the least. And there were times where he is having to really scramble and make a lot happen for his team. The good news is, from the Kansas perspective, is like, they want to move the pocket. They want to be in a position where, hey, if the offensive line ends up not being as good, can the quarterback still make plays? And he seems to be able to do that. Now, the negative side of all that stuff is like, this dude is pretty small. Like I know 6'1", 195. I would not be surprised if it's a little bit smaller than that. And you always wonder, like, what does that mean from a durability standpoint, right? Because we did just undergo with Jalen Daniels some really good highs, but a lot of injuries over the course of his career. And like, here's the thing. This could be a negative, but it's also a big compliment. When I saw like the film and this dude's making like throws downfield and he's getting like nailed in the pocket, or he's like running around and he's scrambling and he's running downfield and he's breaking tackles, or he's making multiple guys hit him to have to go down, he's staying strong up with the ball. Like, those things are awesome. He wants to fight for extra yards. He wants to fight for his teammates. He has more strength than you'd think. He has courage to take those big hits. Those are all awesome traits and awesome skills and ones that I would want in the quarterback position, right? But at the same point in time, that means that the KU, coaches are going to have to kind of coach into him like, hey, you don't have to do that every time. Like maybe run out of bounds here. Maybe take a slide right here, maybe deliver the ball here so that you're not having to take that big hit because you are a little bit smaller and we don't want you getting hurt, right? So it's almost one of those things where it's like, it's a good thing to have those traits, but you just got to reel them in a little bit there. But I will say, like, speaking of Jalen Daniels, you see the commit from Southern California, you see people bring up Jalen Daniels and you start to think about it and you're just like, is this just because it's another quarterback from Southern California? Like, is this just the easy comp here? But then you actually watch some of the highlights and you're like, oh, there actually is some Jalen Daniels here. And then when you look at some of the play type and archetype. So I do find that at least a little bit interesting there.
That's all for today's Big 3 and 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 and 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA or the Big 3 and 30 NFL wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 and 30 College.